All right, guys. So we got some pretty big news from the White House recently. And so this video is going to go over the news that was just released by the White House and see what changes they want us to make when it comes to the creation of software applications to make them more secure. So a statement was released from the Office of the National Cyber Director in the White House that they want developers, application developers, to try switching over to Rust to make their applications more secure. So for this video, we're going to go over what Rust is, why they want us to make those changes, and what the benefits of those changes would be. So if you're a programmer or a coder, you already know that Rust is a general purpose programming language similar to Python. I want to say Java is kind of the same realm as well, and is used for developing primarily software applications that are RAM or memory safe and secure. Some of the key benefits to using Rust are memory management, safety, concurrence, and performance, just to name a few. Now, before we move on, I want to clear up one of these terms, which is concurrency. When you're saying that something is concurrent or a set of events occurred concurrently, you're saying that two events happen at the same time. So you can kind of imagine this in a version of, like Batman and superhero type TV shows, movies, and things like that, where someone gets framed and they're like, hey, I didn't do it. And they have to prove it and be like, well, hey, we have video evidence of you doing this. And it's like, that's impossible because I was at a different location at a distance like very far away or a pretty good distance away. So there's physically no way I was able to commit this crime that you're accusing me of. What they're saying is at the time of the crime, you're claiming that I was at two places concurrently or at the same time, which is for most humans, to my understanding, not physically possible. Now, back on track, the focus of the White House making this statement is that they want Rust to be used more to make applications RAM or memory safe. To name a few of the benefits, Rust prevents certain things like it prevents certain memory related bugs like buffer overflows, null pointers used after free vulnerabilities, and things like that. Let me give you an example of buffer overflows, because for people that are new to the tech world, primarily if you're focusing on the cybersecurity sector of things, buffer overflows is a good concept to be aware of. In fact, if you're trying to get the security plus primarily, then you actually are going to need to know buffer overflow. So let's just touch on that real quick. So a buffer in technology is a section of temporary RAM that is used to move data from one place to another. And it's held, by my understanding, basically within the grander or bigger capacity of RAM or memory in a computer. It's just that a little portion of that memory is delegated to a particular use, and the rest of the memory is going to be used for whatever applications that you're running. So let's try to paint a picture with this. We're going to use Black Clover as an example. If you know Black Clover, then you know about Asta, and you also know about Leeb, who is essentially his twin brother. Now, Leeb operates in the same way that Kurama operates for Naruto, in that he essentially inhabits Asta's body, more or less. He can break free to a degree when he wants to, but he's essentially kind of like sealed in Asta, and he is the source of Asta's power. Now, the main difference is, unlike Naruto, who Naruto would have been a powerhouse regardless, it's just that Kurama added to what he already had. Asta is a blank slate. He doesn't have any magic at all, which becomes, I believe, a pivotal part of the story later on. But because he's a clean slate and he doesn't have any magic at all, he's able to use the power that his twin brother uses, called anti-magic. Normally, when anti-magic comes into contact with magic, anti-magic automatically wins pretty much by default. Magic cannot exist in the presence of anti-magic, but because Asta doesn't have any magic in his body, he's able to hold it. So try to paint this picture using that example. Let's say Leeb is like a small piece somewhere in your body, like your heart, think like a core, like a monster that has like a core. Imagine like a small core existing in your body, and that's Leeb. He's your source of power, right? The thing is, his power is meant to generally be limited, or rather separate from yours, so that it doesn't overwhelm you. If it overwhelms you, you have problems. Now, let's say Leeb, for whatever reason, his power continues to grow, meaning the usage of memory continues to grow. His power continues to grow, but it grows beyond his control. Imagine that core, like a hole pops into it and it bursts open, even just a little bit, because the power is so overflowing that the core can't hold it. Now imagine that all that anti-magic is flooding Asta's body, like it's flooding my body top to bottom, bottom up, whatever it is, but it's flooding my body. Normally for Asta, this wouldn't be a problem. But remember, Asta has his own capacity as well. In typical shonen anime, yeah, you can usually siphon off power from another entity or something, but you can only handle so much before it causes some type of sickness. You may, be deleted. You'll pass out and get some type of sickness that way. there's usually some type of drawback from using too much power. So in this example, again, imagine that Lieb's power is growing. The core that holds his power bursts open, and that power starts leaking into Asta. Normally, this wouldn't be a problem because he's a clean slate. But if the power continues to grow more and more and more, eventually it's going to overwhelm him, and you'll have stereotypical shonen stuff again. That is him blacking out. He might go into a rage mode. He might get some type of sickness, something else. Bottom line, he's incapacitated and he can't do anything. So hopefully that is a good illustration of what a buffer overflow is. A buffer is a tiny section of memory that is meant to temporarily move power or temporarily move data from one place to another. And the larger body of RAM, it can still be used for other stuff. But if that buffer is overwhelmed and the amount of memory like in that buffer becomes too great, it will essentially burst open. There will be something called a memory leak, hence buffer overflow, and it'll flow into the rest of the RAM or memory in the computer. And when you have something like that, you have what's called resource exhaustion, which ultimately leads to your computer going down. Now, what issue triggered the White House to make this statement? And is there anything that we can immediately do about it? Is there something, any specific details that they've given us, things like that? From what I can tell, there doesn't seem to be a specific single incident that caused them to make this statement. It seems like because cyber crimes are on the rise due to the rise of technology as well, that, it's just they're trying to mitigate the opportunity that threat actors, meaning like hackers and hacktivists, people like that, they're trying to mitigate the amount of crimes that they can commit digitally, primarily when it comes to memory-related crimes and damaging computers and rendering systems basically not able to do anything. They become immobilized, I guess. According to whitehouse.gov, the White House believes that an entire class of memory-related bugs or other vulnerabilities can be completely blocked out if software developers were to switch from using unsafe languages to using a safer language such as Rust. Naturally, this will allow different applications to be designed pretty much out the gate with a good amount of security and safety for its end users, as well as for its internal company, the ones that's creating it, basically the proprietors of the product. So what exactly can we use to create memory safe or more secure software applications from this point on if we were to follow what the White House wants us to do? Keep in mind, this is more of a recommendation than anything. This is not a legal standard that we have to uphold, at least on the commercial side and the public sector. But from my understanding, it's not exactly like a law that's in place. It's more like a strong recommendation. So what can we use to implement their advice and make things more secure and limit the amount of cyber crimes that can and will pop up in the future? Personally, I recommend going to whitehouse.gov and reading the full report that they have posted. You'll see the initial article, but if you go to the bottom of the webpage, you will see a link that will show the whole report, and you'll naturally get more information on the discussion and what they were recommending and some of the pros and cons to making this change. Now, there were three main details or requirements that the White House was looking for, but there was one detail in particular that I wanted to point out, which was whatever programming language you use, Rust or another one, the programming language cannot have the ability to override what's called the garbage collector. So we're going back to the buffer overflow example. Remember, buffer, temporary memory. That piece of memory from the bigger piece of memory, it's allocated to something else. So it's kind of sectioned off a little bit, and then you have the rest of the memory. Now, you don't want to leave a buffer just sitting around. You're leaving a vulnerability open for someone to access your computer system or your information systems and to essentially do a buffer overflow, if not some other attack that will shut your systems down, both your individual workstation, maybe even as large as multiple workstations within a division of an organization, right? So the garbage collector is supposed to automatically do away with that buffer, that temporary space of RAM or memory, so that that vulnerability ceases to exist. And that way a buffer overflow situation can't happen. Two particular languages in the article that were called out that do fit the non-override of the garbage collector requirement are C and C++, which are both pretty common and popular programming languages right now. But the problem is that they're not memory safe, meaning you use those to build applications, but those applications will not automatically be protected from RAM or memory related bugs, right? So they cover one base, but they don't cover everything. that the White House is recommending. So that's why the White House is recommending that developers use Rust more often, as much as possible, to create their applications, and they'll initially come out the gate more secure than if you use other general programming languages. Then you'll probably have to make updates down the line, either to prevent certain vulnerabilities from being taken advantage of, or someone did take advantage of them and it's too late, and now you have to fix things on the back end after your incident response situation is over. But there are programming languages where the garbage collector does not automatically kick in, so that leaves that vulnerability open. So that's the key detail that I wanted to point out of the requirements. If you want to see the other two requirements, I do once again recommend you go to whitehouse.gov, and you can just Google the whitehouse.gov Office of National Cyber Director and just look at the announcement that they made. You should be able to find the article pretty easily. It was more or less the first thing that I found when I Googled it. So hopefully that helps. But yeah, guys, I'm going to go ahead and leave it at that. Go ahead and leave feedback for me in the comment section down below. If you have any questions for me, go ahead and send them my way. I'll see you next time.